Hey y'all, it's Brett Manning here, and I want to talk to you about the function and structure of the vocal cords, or the voice as a whole apparatus, not just the vocal cords, but the respirator, the vibrator, and the resonator, the three parts of the voice that make up the voice. You see, just like we are body, mind, and soul, we're three-part. The universe is three parts: time, space, and matter. Time is divisible by three: past, present, and future. Three partials that make up the whole. Well, the voice has the respirator, which is the lungs, some would say the diaphragm, but the lungs and diaphragm that work together, the vibrator, which is the vocal cord, the vibratory mechanism, and the resonators, which is the spaces above the vocal cords. What I want to do is give you just a little bit of background on each one of these mechanisms. The first is the respirator. Now, lungs obviously power the vocal cords. Air blows through them, and it's the sound of air whizzing past the vocal cords that are bursting open and closing again, open and closing again. It's that sound, that's making pitch, that's making tone. But the problem is that there's a lot of debate about breathing. Some people say don't focus on it at all, and others focus on it so much that singers often become more tense as a result of making sure they're breathing. I've had kids coming in, a gentleman came in from overseas for his first lesson, and he was used to this heavy breathing exercise that was to get him prepared to sing. And I told him, I said, man, you don't need to do that before you come in here. And he was wound up, and he would sit here and go, and I said, look, here it is. When you breathe in, your stomach goes out. If I turn sideways, you'll see it even more. You breathe out, your stomach comes in. Why is that happening? Because the lungs, which are housed behind hard rib bones, rib cage, are spongy material. Think of two loaves of bread, but they expand. When they expand, those soft, mushy lungs have to press against ribs. It makes you feel panicky, tight-chested. Or they can press downward against a diaphragm, which looks like a basketball if you chopped it in half, stuck it under the lungs. So you breathe in, that basketball flattens, the diaphragm flattens and displaces all the viscera, the organs, forward. That pokes the stomach out. So apparently, it looks like I gain 10 pounds every time I take a breath. Breathe out, collapses back to normal. Breathe in, the diaphragm drops, places the organs forward. Breathe out, relaxes. Now, I don't think of taking a breath as much as I think of allowing a breath. When I drop my diaphragm, air replaces that vacuum. The atmospheric compression in here is approximately 14.6 pounds per square inch. So if I go like this, if I close my hands and suddenly open up, that vacuum causes air to rush in and fill the space. So if I go, I close off the back of my mouth and make a narrow sound, that sound against my lips is air rushing in to fill the vacuum, very sudden. So that's what happens. I take a breath or allow a breath. I breathe in, stomach expands out, air rushes in to fill that vacuum. Then as I begin to sing, the vocal cords, which are the second part of the instrument, have the responsibility of regulating airflow. Airflow has some ability to regulate vocal cord vibration. But I believe that because breathing is intuitive and singing or vocal cord vibration is not just intuitive, but is voluntary. So you have involuntary breathing, although you can make it voluntary. It's like blinking. You do it all day long. Blink, 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 blinking. You do it all day long, but you don't think about it. The second you start thinking about it, you'd be like, oh, I forgot to blink. And people look at you funny. And when you breathe, people do this. And honestly, sometimes we look a little crazy, singers, because we're so wrapped up in it. So breathing should happen instinctively, intuitively, and involuntary. The second part of the voice, again, is the vocal cords. Because breathing is a foundation, not just for singing, but for life. You don't breathe, you don't live. You don't breathe, you don't sing. This powers the mechanism, and this regulates that power. The vocal cords are housed like a V, shaped behind the Adam's apple like a V, and air blows through this very elasticy material. It's covered with respiratory mucosa. It's a thin, watery, mucousy substance that creates that sill. That's why it's important to not let your voice dry out. If your voice does dry out, by the time it dries out, often it's too late because you don't notice. And once your voice dries out, you begin to have trouble immediately. And it can take a while to hydrate your voice. Some people believe do some Gatorade to keep you hydrated. That's true, but Gatorade, it does have a lot of sugar. It does hydrate you fast, and I use it only for emergency purposes. But the vocal cords housed behind the Adam's apple, all they're doing is starting out with the ease of a cough. And then you add tone to it, almost like a stutter, like like a stuttered laugh. So if you feel the cool air flowing across your vocal cords when you breathe in, you go, it's because they've opened very wide and air is passing through them. As soon as they vibrate, you feel a click. You can feel it on your throat. You blow, the air blows across the vocal cords, and they suck together. They go like this model. This is a model of the larynx, side model. This stuff right here is called thyroid cartilage. It's also known as the Adam's apple, and the vocal cords are housed behind there. Above there, you have what's called hyoid muscles, which are swallowing muscles, and digastric muscles, digastric muscles, which are shaped like a V, housed to the front of your chin, or attached to the front of your chin, and fan backwards to the top of this bone here, right here. I'm going to not tell you the name of too many things. I would rather you just go look them up, because it's going to confuse you. But you got this bone, you got this Adam's apple, you got this thing here flipping around. It's the epiglottis. It's a little flap that closes down over the top of your vocal cords to keep you from choking, to keep stuff from going down your windpipe. Your windpipe's in front, your food pipe's in back. When you swallow, the epiglottis comes down at the same time as the larynx comes up. You can see my larynx come up when I go into swallowing mechanism. This closes down, prevents food from going down there, and when the epiglottis is up, when you begin to sing, vocal cords pull apart, come back together, pull apart, come back together, pull apart, come back together, very fast. The air overcomes the vocal cords very, very rapidly. On concert A, 440 beats per second. Here, 220 beats a second. Here, you guessed it, 110. So if I'm saying, you start to hear the initial vibrations, each individual vibration. Here, it's faster. Here, faster. Even here, faster, 880. So it doubles with every octave, and that's why octaves sound the same, because intuitively your brain hears the exact same amount of vibrations per second, doubled, which is pretty cool. Intuitively, we're smarter than we think we are. This means a person of an IQ of 57 or 46 still makes sound because their subconscious mind can regulate the vocal cords and tell the voice what to do. So you don't have to be incredibly smart to be a singer. I like to say, I'm not that smart. Maybe I have a chance. But this intuitiveness, where your mind is hearing pitches and frequencies, is now regulated by a stretching mechanism. You have arytenoids and cricoids. Cricoid stretch, arytenoids close, the vocal cords. One group of muscles is pulling that vocal cord and elongating it and thinning it out. Just like a rubber band, when you stretch it, each note higher gives you a higher pitch. Or tuning a guitar, when you turn that tuner, the string gets tighter and thinner, and that gives you a higher pitch. You loosen the string, the string gets thicker and gives you a deeper pitch. Same thing with the vocal cords. Eventually, the vocal cords say, you know what, we can't do this anymore. And they panic, and they burst apart into falsetto. Or they're vibrating fine. They burst slightly apart, and more air blows through them than what is necessary. The vocal cords should stay together. If I were to blow on this piece of paper here, you might expect that. But what you wouldn't expect is this. I blow above it, now because it's folded in half, doesn't have the mobility that it needs. But what you don't expect is for the vocal cords to blow across them and the pressure of air sucking the vocal cords together. But when the stress gets too much, the vocal cords say, we can't do this anymore, and they burst suddenly apart. When that happens, you've got to get something to keep them together. So if I feel somebody going, I say, they're both pulling apart. They need more compression. Well, that's what consonants do. They compress the vocal cords. If they're voiced consonants, like ma, na, they have resonance there. It closes the vocal cords a little more than on So if and n are voiced consonants, what would be a consonant that would close the cords even more? Some consonant that would provide stoppage. D, j, g, b. You have pitch, but you have a backing up of the air. The air blows through there, but it's not allowed to escape, so the vocal cords just continuously clamp down. To keep those vocal cords together, if we're going to say, flip into falsetto, then ma or na, ma 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 ma, should hold the chords together. Ma 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 ma. If that doesn't work, or na 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 doesn't work, then we're going to put more compression on there. Ba 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 ba. Ga 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 ga. Once that holds the chords together, then back off. Ma 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 ma. Wa 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 wa. So I'm no longer using consonants to hold the chords together. Now, I have a particularly very heavy voice because I was in the studio very, very late last night. Rumor has it I've been working on something a lot. So, and I work stupid hours. Yesterday, 16-hour days. So I have slightly swollen vocal cords. So on a day when the cords are slightly swollen, the voice feels heavy, I've got to do something to thin them out. So just compressing the vocal cords, ba ba ba, ma ma ma, na na ga ga da da da, any consonant that stops or impedes airflow through across the lips and across the vocal cords, which creates closure. Any of those consonants can be great for creating closure, but the problem is they don't allow a lot of airflow. Especially the longer you go, and you can overcompress. That's why, done correctly, the is still the best vocal exercise in the world. If I were to say, ba 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 ba, and it felt tight, I'd say, man, that just doesn't sound very good, man. So what I'm going to do is go, see how even and effortless that was. What also happened is not only did the close the vocal cords several times per second, it closes them and opens them, which simulates singing. Singing, remember, is a series of opening and closing of the vocal cords very rapidly, 440 times per second. So I'm simulating that with my lips. I'm simulating the vocal cords. But it was maybe like 8 times a second. So if I can get that, do you notice there's no effort to that? What happens if I try to open my mouth? I landed right in the same place that I went up there with. But what I didn't go is, I didn't squeeze too much. I didn't go into falsetto, but I went right in the middle. This is the act of maintaining a balanced compression. Now, the thing that I work with people on is developing enough head voice so they can back off of the compression, enough chest voice so that they have compression present, and enough pharyngeal voice to balance that. Now let me talk about the pharyngeal voice and the chest voice and the head voice. We've moved on to the third part, which has to do with resonance. When balancing the resonance, it simply means that if the chest voice is weak, we will not hear any rumble in the voice. We can't hear any, there's some rumble there. If it's right here, if I'm high and I have no presence in my chest voice, then you're going to see me as I sing higher, it's going to go towards head voice and go, it wants to go light right away. That can be cool if I want like a smoky, fuzzy tone, but what if I want some depth? So I might spend most of my time in head voice, which is the but then that's to the neglect of chest voice, which is the Typically we refer to the chest voice, which again resonates externally against the sternum. When I say I feel a lot of vibration against my sternum. When I say I feel a lot of vibration against the top of my head. Some people don't feel it so much there. They have to feel the back of their head. This but if you can feel resonance here, one thing is that you'll notice that you feel very little against your sternum. So you are developing those hard sounds that travel out the mouth. The pure chest voice, and the pure head, or what they call legit voice, like a female opera singer. She sings and that pure, light, pretty little head voice actually softens up the chest voice, because the very color of it is light. The sensation, the light sensation, causes the muscles that produce chest voice to back off and surrender to the muscles that produce a pure legit voice. And therefore the vocal cords aren't vibrating along their entire thickness. What's happening literally is that these vocal cords, they're vibrating inside there. There's less vocal cord depth being employed. Now, typically these are red. This is just some tissue in there to represent where the vocal cords are. But the vibration doesn't penetrate as much vocal cord depth. If it's falsetto, not only does it not penetrate as much vocal cord depth, but the vocal cords burst apart. The chords together, once the chords are together, what we have is the ability to add more resonance to it. Once I have the I'm going to try to blend between and and I might do that by just talking a simple exercise. But there's not a lot of presence there, not a lot of pressure. So what I want to do is add the third resonator, the pharyngeal, the which is like the back of the throat. ah. If you go wow, 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 wow. No, the pharynx, there's the oral pharynx, which is the back of the throat, and there's nasal pharynx, which is up higher, which has the nasal sound of nasality. If I say wow, meow, it's in the end of the nose, but even more so, it's actually in the, it's against the nasal cavity first, and then projects forward. You can feel that deeply when you say More importantly, know this, that the is deeper than pure head, deeper than he. So the is deeper than pure head. It's lighter than pure chest. If I said see, as soon as I go to the it dumps off the weight of pure chest. So it's important when training our voices that we understand that you're capable of making tons of sounds and combining these sounds. In my recent program, Mastery Mix, I take the ability to train the voice, which is done systematically in my first program, in my flagship program, Singing Success. It's a systematic vocal training program that develops a little bit of chest voice, a little bit of head voice, a little bit of mix, a little bit of vibrato, a lot of control, stretches out the range, connects the range. But then in Mastering Mix, it deals with the subtleties of blending head and chest voice, because everybody's mix is a little bit different. Vince Gill's mix is more towards his head voice. As a matter of fact, some would say he sings only in pure head, that he. It's a very charming sound. Someone like Travis Tritt would have a harder hey. It's a little more in the mouth. Somebody in the middle, more like Keith Urban, It's a very light, but it still has some richness. It has ping, the bite of Travis Tritt, but it also has the lightness of Vince Gill. Same thing with in pop. You might think of Stevie Wonder has that bitey, edgy sound. Michael Jackson had a good bitey, edgy sound, but it was still a very light voice. It wasn't a very, very heavy voice. Then you have really super heavy rock singers like our boy Bono. He was like, I can't believe the news today. As a there's a lot of cry there. Now it's not straight out of the mouth, which would be straight out here, and a lot of bite. But Michael Jackson would have taken that a lot lighter. You take Adam Levine from Maroon 5, it's even lighter. It's more he. But then he added a nasality, a nasal quality to strengthen that mix. Again, all of this can definitely be discovered more fully, more completely, and systematically in my Mastering Mix program. But what I wanted to do today was just give you some background on where resonance happens for each voice type, and that you understand those three mechanisms of the voice. The three mechanisms of the voice that are to be understood, again, are the respirator, the vibrator, and the resonator. When the three work together in harmony and they have equal ultimacy, in other words, you don't put all the attention on just breathing, or all the attention on just the vocal cord, or all the attention on just the resonance, but all three, then you're an effective singer.